Hey everybody, it's Nick, and today we are going to talk about how to give a 5-star farmers market experience. The idea for this exercise came from Brian Chetsky, who is one of the founders of Airbnb. I've heard of a couple of interviews where he's gone through this exercise. I thought it was extremely valuable, and I wanted to reframe that for our industry, and I kind of dialed it into a farmers market experience. And so for our industry, this is how it goes. A 1-star review often will not even have anything to do with you per se, but it's going to be what the public views as maybe inopportune hours or terrible parking, or maybe they can't find it, or maybe Google sends you to the wrong place. Whatever the case may be, some people are so quick to pull the trigger on that 1-star review that, if you read Yelp for more than like 3 seconds, you can tell the kind of people that leave 1-star reviews. They're out of touch with reality. They hold very harsh judgments to just pretty much anybody and everybody. I'm really quite entertained by it. But what would truly earn a 1-star review? And that's if somebody gets up early on a Saturday and they get their kids ready and they're giving up the very few precious hours that they may have on the weekend. And if they get there and you're not there or you're not ready, you made that whole exercise completely not worthwhile for them. That's an automatic earned 1-star review. That's on you. If the parking is terrible, if it's just a toxic environment and vendors are bickering with each other or yelling or something's just not right, that's a true 1-star review. Oddly enough, in preparation for this, I read a lot of 1-star reviews, and I pretty much encourage you to do the same thing. If you're thinking about going to market, it's on you to see what's out there and what's going on and see how we're perceived as farmers and artisans at the market by the public. And one of the things that you'll notice is people will give a 1-star review to the farmer's market and to some farmers, mind you, because there's dogs at the farmer's market. So you're getting a 1-star review because other people have chose to bring their dogs to the market. So take that for what you want. Some of the screenshots that I've given here are to markets that I've visited throughout the country. I just wanted to see what was available. But if you click on a farmer's market in the nearest biggest city close to you, especially on Google, and then you can go to least rated, some very interesting things pop up. And a lot of that is a misalignment with the perceived value of what a farmer's market could be. So again, dogs rate pretty high on the 1-star scale. Not enough vendors, low quality of food, not enough selection, too much arts and crafts, that kind of thing. I'll tend to rank pretty low. And the other thing that I noticed on 1-star reviews is parking and getting to and accessing, and then a lack of facilities like restrooms or hand washing stations or something like that. That's just baseline 1-star review type of situation. And so before I go any further, I do want to talk about a farmer that is going to run a small business and be, your success is going to be predicated on where you're going to be set up. Nowadays, you may or may not have an option. You may be stuck with one market, or you may have the blessing of having several markets in your town. So it's up for you to decide which market is going to best be for you. It may not be the closest one. So what market are you going to help build up? And I really want you going in with that mentality of, I'm going to come to this market. I'm going to be a part of the vendor community. I'm going to be a part of the local food movement. And I like this market for X, Y, and Z reasons. Maybe it's the clientele. Maybe it's the location. Maybe it's just the overall vibe of the market. But what market are you going to insert yourself into with the intention of not only helping you, but to help everybody else that's involved? So just go into it with that. And with that, you're going to have to go and do some research. You're going to have to visit these things in peak season, in off season. That whole year that I really wish people would take before they dive into farming and diving into running a small farm business could and should be spent getting up on Saturday, getting up before the vendors get there, seeing what the load in, seeing what the load out looks like, stay after, stay through lunch, see how really successful market vendors do their thing. The second thing to consider in all this, and especially as you're doing market research, is again, who is reviewing? Now, I'm going to read a couple of these. Not a ton of selection. I got there about 11 o'clock, so maybe earlier in the day. Lots of veggies and peaches. but not much fruit. It's September though, and I'm not really sure what I should have expected. So this guy's given a bad review. I believe this was one I pulled from the Union Square Farmers Market in New York City. Look, if something's not in season, some people will actually give a bad review because they're expecting grocery store type selection. That can't be on you. So don't spend your time worrying about this dude who has no idea what's in season, what's grown locally. You can spin your wheels and just really try to do as much education as possible. But I feel like if your marketing is property aligned and if your story is property aligned, that should cover the bases. I wouldn't, just spend a ton of energy reaching out to folks because they're too lazy to figure it out. The second one that I put up here is way overpriced. $3 for a tomato, $1 for an onion, and $9 for a pound of chicken leg quarters. Better selection of prices at the Tallahassee flea market. I would recommend going there if you want fair prices. This one's a fun one to break down. Number one, obviously that was in Tallahassee, Florida. Interesting market. Whenever a client is, this is a customer, this is not a client. A client is somebody that appreciates you and comes back every single week, and you can count on them because they're counting on you. A customer is somebody that is just going to come up once. They're not going to show any value to you. You're not going to show any value to them. It's a one-way transaction. It's not worth cultivating. But this person has gone to market thinking and assuming that just because they're buying direct that it should be less prices. I don't have to sit here and tell you that your stuff is more valuable than the things at the store, which is bought as a loss leader item for some stores, which is shipped, which is picked not in full peak ripeness with unknown or questionable growing methods. This is not somebody that you want at your market. This is not somebody you want at your booth. And this is somebody whose review is not worth the time of your day. So all that to say, listen, forget the reviews, forget Yelp, forget Google, forget Facebook. You're not doing this for stars. Stars don't put money in your bank account. You are doing this to serve your clients. So this exercise, while it is based in the star rating system, it's just a waypoint finder for you to find your way here. Strive for an exceptional experience for your clients and then give them a reason to talk. Be undeniable. So moving on. Number 2, 2 stars. This is the bare absolute minimum that you could ever expect from a market or a vendor. No signage or cardboard signage. We're talking hobbyist quantity type of offerings. And look, I'm not bashing on anybody that's just starting out. You have what you have, but it's okay to be 2-star when you first start out. But my goal for you is to show up to the market knowing what 2-star looks like and trying everything in the world to avoid it. Dirty. Sometimes, like at my old market, we have tables. They're permanent tables. They're wood. And I would see sometimes vendors wouldn't even take the time to clean the tables off before they just start setting their stuff up. So you've got a week's worth of dirt, pigeons, whatever crazy things would happen at the market as an outdoor shelter for whoever walks by throughout the week. Man, you don't know what's been on that thing. Clean your tables. The other thing is I go to markets a lot, and you really don't know who's working the booth and who's not working the booth. And it's like, if you look like some random dude behind the table who's just kind of hem-hawing around, I'm going to pause to acknowledge the accent factor on this show. Between me and Andy, I think we have a pretty unique and hysterical twang, don't we? Anyway, at the very bare minimum, do something to stand out to at least acknowledge the fact that, yes, you work here and transacting food items. Another thing, 2 stars, cash only. Look, take credit cards. I can't beat this one enough. If you're not taking credit cards, you're missing out on tons of sales. The fees pay for themselves. Get over it. And then just being ill-prepared, not having change, no bags for the clients, no cleaning supplies to clean the tables, basic utensils like writing, pen and pad to keep up with your sales. Things are going to come up, and we're going to address how to make sure that you cover this at the end of this segment. But 2-star rating, very bare minimum. These are folks that, God bless them, God love them. They came out of the field. They threw the back of the truck open, and here it is. Take it or leave it. They don't care. And neither will your client. Number three, this is kind of rounding the top of the bell curve for farmers market vendors. This is about where most people fall. And then there lies the opportunity to be excellent. At 3 stars, you got a little bit of bulk. You're consistent, at least through the peak season. You may run out of things but before the market closes. And look, I've run out of stuff plenty of times. Ideally, you run out within the last 10 minutes of the farmer's market, on your last person. That all comes in time. You'll be able to more accurately harvest. You'll know when things are happening. It takes a couple of years of experience there, but strive for that. Strive for always having enough to at least carry every single sale that you could have got. There's no reason for somebody to go to the market, for you to go to the market, and then not capture the sale that you could have got. So signage. Signage runs the gambit. It's all over the place at every farmer's market you go to. Again, you've got the cardboard with some weird wax crayon. You've got super nice signs. You got people that go too much. I've seen digital signs. I've seen those little felt boards with the push pins, which I really like. That's what I used for my food truck. People want to know how much an item is and how much volume that is. So whether it's a bag or a bunch or a pint or whatever, a bouquet, whatever it is, clear signage, clear quantity, legible, and in an ideal world, spelled right. A 3-star vendor is going to take credit, and they're not going to be snarky about it. They're not going to complain about it. They're not going to say cash preferred. They're not going to shame the customer into whipping out the credit card, no matter what the case may be. They're there to give you money. Take the money. Another thing that may lead to a 3-star type of experience is just blending in, not being something noticeable or remarkable. You're not going to stand out. And if you have the run of the mill, if you have about the average, are you really worth a trip? If everything is equal and you're doing the very bare minimum, or you're just being average, are you going to be worth the trip to the market on Saturday? Or are you going to be, I've got to go because I can't live without this for the week? 4-star experience. These are the vendors that do more than just show up. They get a little bit better every week. They spend time and effort and energy and cash making their booth better week after week. And again, I don't expect anybody to give a 5-star experience right out the gate. But what I have seen is people that put in the time and effort, they get there really quick, and they're often cornerstones of their market. Great signage. Not mediocre signage, not just whatever. This is branded signage that's clear, it's concise, there's no question about it. It eliminates all of that extra back and forth of questioning, especially during peak times. You don't want to be wasting your time and their time and slowing down your line where people's lining up to give you money to say how much this tomato is. These 4-star vendors are sparkling clean. They clean throughout the day. They're picking up trash that's not theirs. Their booth is presentable, and you should be able to eat off the table. That bounty is there from the time they set up. If the market opens at 8 o'clock, they're ready at 7:50. And if that market ends at 2 o'clock, maybe they stay a little later. And I'm not saying you have to stay there afterwards, but if somebody comes up last minute, the very, very last minute, or as you're putting up, get that sale. The extra harvest that is picked should be appropriately priced so that it's covered. It's not a waste. It's not a financial waste. You can do something with the food and have a plan for that, but don't look at items that you harvested as a waste, because your price throughout the day should have covered the last few bunches that you had. And I'm not saying you have to be totally bountiful every last minute of the day. People are going to understand if they get there late that they get kind of what's left over, but have something for them. You have a friendly staff. Ideally, a dedicated staff that knows what it's like to be friendly, to be of service, recognizable in branded clothing that ties them to the booth. Hopefully, you would have a few unique items to set you apart from the crowd, no matter what that may be, whether it's added value product or specializing in a particular crop. Be known for something. And then you should go beyond just your average Ziploc baggie, clear baggie, flimsy clamshell type of thing, the white thank you bag. Step it up just a little bit. And I put recipe cards on here because I see a lot of people get like super jazzed up about, oh, we include recipe cards. And that's the very bare minimum you need to be doing for your clients. If they don't know what a particular vegetable is, or they don't know how to use microgreens, both on the web, on social media, handouts at your market, have that little extra branded thing that they can take home. Whenever they're putting up their groceries, they're reminded of where they bought this thing from. There's not a question of when they get home, if they bought from 3 or 4 vendors, which one specifically came from you, because the packaging is branded and these handouts are branded. Be of service. The 5-star experience. Vendors who dedicate time and resources to hone their craft. And I put craft in there because this is a craft. Being a farmer is a craft, selling is a craft, and that hospitality is a craft that's worth working on. This is what sets the top performers apart. So it's everything that we talked about from before, but it's better. It's more refined. It's something that's been worked on and practiced and learned over the years. These vendors are curtailing their own following and bringing their own people to the market via social media and or email lists. And the clients that show up to see those farmers and to go there first, they're excited to be there. Everything is appropriately branded. Everything is staged. It's not just a single plane of everything on a table. There's going to be things on the table. There's going to be things hanging. There's going to be things deep and wide. And if your market allows it, sticking out into the aisle a little bit. Get in front of your items. Be personable. This is where samples start coming into play. And not just if your market allows it, of course, but if you're giving out samples, don't just do the paper napkin thing. Make it presentable. Make it nice. Spend a little bit of extra money on a fancier toothpick or a nicer little spoon. If you're introducing yourself with a sample, make sure that that sample is memorable. Think of everything that you would want that maybe you don't even think about. So do you want some lady in a hairnet at Costco handing you this brown funk on a paper plate, or would you rather have it on a little nicer presentation with a hand washing station or hand sanitizer or a little toothpick with a provided trash can? I've been to a lot of markets where I see samples being given out and there's no trash can to throw the toothpick, and then there's like this pile of toothpicks that's in everybody's way. It's finish the process. Give that wow factor that's worth sharing, and do it every single time. You can't be inconsistent if you're a 5-star vendor. And this is where we start thinking about things beyond the 5-star. So again, the purpose of this exercise is to go, okay, if I'm just starting out, the notion of a 5-star experience is going to be a lot of work for me. I'm not used to this. I don't know how things work. I'm unpracticed. Right. But once you start seeing how kind of outlandish you can be about, well, what if and could we and is it possible, and just start feeling free to throw ideas up against the wall and see what sticks, then it's much easier to dial back down. So a 6-star experience is something that Anthony Bourdain always said, if you see a line for food, get in it. You should have a line from the time you open up to the time you close down. People will wait in a line for food, I promise. And it's not just for the product, it's for the service. People don't mind waiting in a line if by the time you get there, you're not wasting your time and or you're not being rude and rushing. It has to be efficient. The line means demand. The fast-moving line means you know what you're doing. You're that craftsman that we were talking about earlier. Upgraded food packaging that keeps items safe and brand recognizable beyond the market. If they take something home and it's wrecked by the time they get there, sloshing around in the back of the car, that's no service to the client. Upgrade your packaging. And don't worry about how much it costs. Build that into the price of the vegetables or fruit. At this level, you're also going to have staff that's prepared for a busy market and the ability to deal with all personality types, because you will see every form and fashion of human being on the planet at the farmer's market. You'll get people that think they're better than you, and you'll have people that ride to the market on a purple unicorn. It's a very entertaining proposition. And at this point, that staff that we mentioned needs to have the ability to answer any question, not only about your farm, but to rationally, and I mean rationally, discuss our industry in a factual manner. If you turn on Netflix, there's 20 documentaries taking every stance there is about food. Don't make shit up. Don't be an expert in things you're not an expert in. But if somebody asks if your lettuce is non-GMO, you need to know how to appropriately have the conversation that they don't make GMO lettuce. Don't be condescending. Just be factual, be polite, and move on. You should be busy enough that you don't get drugged down into any rabbit holes. 7 stars. And again, we're just throwing stuff out there. Could you have an on-site local chef advising on how they would use the product? Could samples be paired with coffee or tea and infused water to enhance the experience? And could you also have a speedy checkout line for VIP clients to bypass lines at the farmer's market? If Disney can do it, what's stopping you? 8 stars. On-site local chef giving cooking demos at your booth with both your booth and other vendor products. Could you tie in the whole market? Could you be an asset to the market while enhancing the client experience? Could you offer a service to cold store and to take all shopping bags to the customer's car when they're ready to leave? You know, when you're shopping at a clothing store and you're walking around with all this stuff and somebody says, well, let me hold that for you. And then at the end you check out. And then sometimes you go to a grocery store where they're really dedicated to service and they have baggers that bag your stuff and take it out to the car. It's happening in other places. Is that an 8-star experience? At least at a farmer's market. 9 stars. A private market area for your VIP clients. Is there something more convenient, something easier to get to for the clients that you know is not going to waste your time, that you know is there to see you and is excited, that you have dedicated staff to, that maybe behind closed curtains they get the very best of the best? Is that local chef now available to go home and prepare the meals for the week for that client? Or maybe the clients are grown specific varieties per their request that's only available to them. Now again, those 3 things are pretty crazy, and I don't really suggest that anybody does it, but that's going way above and beyond what anybody is expecting. And again, if we're thinking about what the possibilities are, we need to go past that. We need to go past the possibilities in order to rein in where your ability is. 10 stars. A celebrity chef picks up at the farm and delivers to the client's house to prepare the meals. And maybe that client has a private plot with 24/7 webcams so they can always see their farm. They can control the varieties and the methods used to grow their product. This is absolutely insane, but we're trying to take it to an insane level. So next, if we go back down to 5 stars, is it so much that you update your social media with pictures and maintain an email list? Is it so much to ask that we are branding and having a table set up or a booth set up that's beyond the normal? Is it so much to ask that we just level up everything a little bit and that we have bonus items built into the cost to enhance purchases? This could be samples. This could be little bottles of fruit and vegetable wash that you make, and the only way to get it is to purchase fruits and vegetables from you. Is it not just recipe cards, but maybe a series of recipe cards that they get throughout the season? So by the end of the season, they have this little cookbook. And maybe those VIP clients that you weren't thinking about 5 minutes ago, they have a custom made little 4x6 binder that you give to them at the end of the season as a thank you. You don't think those people aren't going to come back and see you? I guarantee you nobody is doing that right now. Be the wow factor worth sharing and do it every single time. That 5-star experience is now totally within your reach. And to get to those consistent practices, it takes market research. It takes, before you decide to go down the farm business route, to do the market research, both locally, but to visit other farmers markets in your travels, or specifically dedicate a trip to go see some of the best farmers markets in the world. If you're going to dedicate a large chunk of your life to doing this for a living, go see the best of the best. Out of market ideas. It's a much different experience searching for starter homes versus buying a second or third or vacation home. It's a much different experience going to your local Chevy, Dodge, Ford dealership versus a Mercedes dealership. Everything is different. Everything is leveled up. Take some of those ideas, like go to the waiting room at the local top 3 car dealerships, and then just go to a waiting room. It's not going to cost you anything. Go to a waiting room at a BMW dealership. It's night and day. They're making their clients feel welcomed. Out of industry inspiration. Think hospitality. Nicer hotels, nicer restaurants, do things where the cost is built into the meal, the cost is built into the stay to enhance that level of feeling welcomed, of feeling safe, is feeling that every need that the customer or the client, every need of the person visiting has been thought of and addressed well ahead of time. Your branded booth and style. Your booth should not only have brand colors in the same fonts and a consistency time after time, but it should almost have an unspoken, unseen style. Are you laid back? Are you very outgoing? Are you doing this with a sense of higher class without being condescending about it? Are you going to wear a set of overalls and that's going to be your costume and you're playing that role of a very approachable, sensible farmer? If that's something you're going to do, be consistent about it. The correct mindset for sales. Market day is sales day. It's the reason people are there. They're there to buy. The people that are there to socialize, while you need to be friendly to them, your main concern is the people that are doing transactions with you that got up in the morning specifically to come see you. The people that are there at the market for the first time that walk by and notice your fantastic booth, You need to be able to engage them in a way that's not off-putting, that respects their time, in order to convert that customer into a client. You also need to be an ambassador, not only for your farm, but for the market. You're representing everybody that sells there. If they have a bad experience with one person, they may not come to the market at all. And you also are an ambassador for everybody out there that's growing something or harvesting something for somebody else to eat. Remember, if you're out visiting farmers markets while you're on vacation, I know a lot of people do the same thing. And if they have a bad experience in one town and then in another town, they're going to start broad stroking us all into a bad bucket. Be factual in your information, know what you're talking about, know the difference between the different growing methods, and certainly be a fan of your own, but don't disparage other farmers with how they grow theirs. And then on the more practical side, have a crash box. The crash box for me was every time I went to the market, I had a pen and paper, and if there was something I needed that day I didn't have, it went on the pen and paper, and before I went home, we stopped and got whatever we needed. So that was, over time, medical supply kit, a small broom and a brush to pick up broken glass, tape, picnic table clips, little alligator-style clips to hold things down, extra rope. You always need something to hold something down in the market. For some reason, it's always windy, and just make sure you have a bunch of sticky things and clampy things with you. At the first of the year, go get a ton of extra change and put it in your crash box and forget it's there. Always have enough change to give to your neighbor whenever they mess up and you didn't bring enough. Always have plenty of ones, plenty of fives, plenty of tens. And if you're dealing with change, bring extra batteries, bring extra charging cords, bring extra boxes for the wall to plug those charging cords into, extra pens, extra papers, extra business cards, extra flyers, cleaning supplies, wet wipes. Always have wet wipes, your little trash can that I mentioned earlier, and just keep it in one box. And at the end of the day, everything goes back in the box. Or maybe your crash box never even comes out of the truck and you never have to use it, but it's always there just in case you do. Not just enough for yourself, but enough for your other neighboring vendors whenever they need something. And inside that crash box, backups. If you take credit cards, have more than 3 readers, especially if you have multiple points of sale or multiple people working there. Not only did we have a Square reader, but we also had a PayPal reader just in case, and it happened. Square happened to be down whatever morning that was. Have a backup. Don't set up a barrier between you and your cash. Start thinking of your farmer's market as a seasonal menu. When people come up early April and they start asking for tomatoes, well, that's not in season right now, but here's our seasonal menu of things that you can expect throughout the year, not only from us, but from everybody else. That way, if somebody brings a damn pineapple up in March, they know it's not being grown locally. And at the same time, you're not calling out a reseller. The next tip is for you yourself to go experience what a 5-star outing looks like. If you sell to chefs and you're not going to eat at their restaurant once a year, you're not being a great vendor, but you're also missing out on some pretty nice experiences. And yes, it's expensive, and I get that, and I know it. But if anybody deserves a nice night out, it's your wife or your husband first that has to put up with all of our crazy farming nonsense. But then you also deserve it too. You work very hard, and you need to see what happens after the fact. And I don't know a chef in the world that would not make a big deal if their farmer came in to eat. They know that this is an expensive, special experience. They're in the job of making it special. Let them know you're coming. I promise you won't forget it. And while you're at it, if it's possible, stay at the 5-star hotel down the street and see what it's like to level up a little bit and to see what all the fuss is about and see how really little it takes just to be a little nicer and a little bit more prepared and a little bit more put together. The next thing is to get involved. If you don't like the way your market is being ran and you have some ideas to make it a little better, go to the meetings, schedule time with the market managers, discuss with other vendors what maybe you could pair up and do together on a special event weekend or maybe an event outside of the market. Talk to your other vendors. Build in enough time. Don't be coming up and rushing up to market and be setting up late. Set up early. Then go lend a helping hand to somebody put up their sign or to help unload their truck if they need it, or that little broom that's in your crash box whenever somebody drops a glass jar. Don't be so frazzled that you don't have time to go help a fellow vendor. Get involved. And then carefully mentor new vendors. And I say carefully because, look, I get it. I don't like giving unsolicited advice, which is crazy because we're sitting here with this channel doing this very same thing, but you're listening here because you want to be. But be on the lookout for new vendors. They are, they're terrified their first day, I promise you, because we all were. Welcome them to the market. They are not your competition. They're there to make the market better with you. They are now part of your team. This is something you have chose to do. So you may be super introverted, but that doesn't mean that you can't get in that crash box and hand them a rope whenever you see that they don't need it. So if you do these things, it's going to make your market experience much better. It's going to make your client's market experience much better. And if you notice, not once in this whole thing did we ever talk about price. Price should be a non-negotiable when you're undeniable and you're operating at a 4 and 5 star level. So that's it. Just some things to think about. See you next week.